Why didn't you have opposition?
You know, I'm not real sure. I think that we've had a successful year. First term, not just year, 4 years. We've had a really successful 4 years. We've had some issues in that 4 years and some things that I wished would have gone differently. But, you know, Chuck, I think that the public can accept that people make mistakes, my employees, things happen, as long as you're upfront and honest with them about it. And I feel like I've always tried to do that, and I've always tried to be honest with and open, and I think that the public can accept that. And I think that's some of my success in this term, is that even when things went wrong, we were open and upfront and honest about it and corrected the problem and moved forward. By far.
Why?
I mean, well, because, you know, one, we're still right on the borderline of having enough people to run the facility. We're working really hard to save the citizens of this county money when it comes to running the facility from where we were years past. And the only way to do that is reduce population in the jail, period. The only way to do it. So we're working hard to make sure that we can get the people out that can be out or should be out, and hold the people in that needs to be held. But when you hold people, you have to still treat them with respect and dignity. They're inmates, and they've done something wrong in our society that's wound them up in jail, or they've been accused of doing something wrong. And you know, so you still have to give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to that, and you have to treat them the way the law makes us. And that, you know, making sure they have the things they need, making sure their families can come visit, making sure, you know, it's difficult on all levels when you're talking about finances and employees, and we're teetering at between 280 and 300 a day, and that's largely in part because we're working the bonds hard, and then we have been given the ability from our county commission. They saw the benefit of the ankle bracelet program that we started. And that's really a medical savior. If we have a person that is a medical cost to this county and they can't make bond, or you know, they don't want to make bond because we're paying all their medical cost, the commission has given us the ability, given me the ability to make that determination, put them out on an ankle monitor, GPS, home arrest, put them out on an ankle monitor, and they pay for their own medical at that point. They're out on bond till they go to trial. And that is a huge savings to this county. And it's helping. Well, I mean,
if you had to put a ballpark,
I mean, probably over 100,000 a year. Easy in medical that we're saving because of that.
Inmate medical
services that we're saving just with the simple ankle bracelet program as an alternative to sitting in jail. You know, if you go down into the facility today, into the new addition that we just built, you would think, why in the world do we have such a nice jail? You know, I don't want to pay for cable. I don't want to pay for TVs. I don't want to pay for 3 meals a day. That's the community's original thought. And, you know, I'm not saying I disagree with it, but at the same time, they do have to understand that the law requires us to do certain things, and then we have to also provide an environment that is safe for inmates and correction officers. And that's where we were before we did this addition a couple of years ago. You know, we were at 400 inmates a day. The staff at that time was staffed for 220. So when you talk about, you know,
That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster, and the commission was gracious enough to see that it was fixing to really blow up again the way it did in '89, and we got this jail out of a lawsuit to begin with. But it's a lot safer. We haven't had any problems, knock on wood, you know, in the last couple of years, and I think it's largely in part the inmates are happier. And I know that sounds funny, but they're somewhat happier, you know. The correction officers are safer, the inmates are safer, and we have the ability to run a facility, you know, properly and efficiently. You know, we went to video visitation in-house. What does that do? Well, it gives us the ability not to move inmates back and forth all day in the jail on visitation days. So when you think about that,
visitation's not face to face.
No, visitation is the community comes into the facility. They sit in front of a monitor screen. They pick it up and they talk to the inmate in his pod. So he never leaves his pod. So how does that help us? Well, we can deal with the public, but we don't have to run inmates back and forth all day with correction officers for visits. You know, it cuts down on contraband. They don't have contact visitation. It cuts down on contraband, manpower running them back and forth. I mean, it allows us to run so much more efficient within the jail with no more manpower than what we had. No, I have said this, and Sheriff Boswell and I talked about this so many times. If you took Russell County and sat it in the middle of the state of Alabama, away from the border of Columbus, Georgia, and Fort Benning, we would not need a 300 or 400 person jail.
What's the difference between a good guy and a bad guy? And I use guy generically.
I can tell you, the difference is a bad guy is somebody who is not sorry for what they did, they're sorry they got caught. A good guy is somebody who, even though he makes a bad decision, he can still be a good guy, and when he gets caught, he's truly sorry for what he done, and so he's remorseful, which means society has a place for him to go back into the world and be productive. There are some people who break the law who have never been in trouble before in their life. They, you know, for whatever reason made a bad choice, and I just find that if you try to treat those people the right way and not demeaning or degrading or somebody's better than somebody else, I just think it takes you a long way. I mean, but the community as a whole, the military as a whole, are there for the same purpose that we are. And so they want to get involved in their community through us. In my reserve unit, I have great reserves that are military people that want to just help and want to come out and ride. So that has been a tremendous asset for us. I think I was. I mean, you know, everybody.
Tell me what a jump out boy was.
Well, I mean, you know, we would ride up to areas of crime, and if people were soliciting to sell cocaine or crack or whatever, we would get out of a van or truck or whatever it was we were in at the time, and we would try to effect arrest on people that was loitering and, you know, potentially selling. We would watch it and we would get out and try to take that corner over, and then we would sometimes do reverses in there. We would act as the people selling, and we would take that corner over. But it was a lot of fun. Policing back then is different than it is now.
So you sold drugs?
Yeah, we would sell, you know, we would sell chopped up soap, but everybody thought it was crack, you know, but we would go get us the right look of the color of crack, and we would chop up soap, and that's what we were, you know, selling. It was the most fun that I've ever had in my 27 years. Yeah, and the thing about it is you've got, at that time we had, you know, 8 guys, and those 8 guys, we depended on each other for our livelihood. I mean, you had to know that the guy behind you was going to cover your back when you went in that door. And so it's a tight-knit group. It should be that way, and they depend on one another so much for going home every night from doing that job. It's the one place in law enforcement that deals with the bad element every day.
Face to face.
Face to face every day. As funny as it turned out to be later, and as we had lots of fun talking about it, I think it potentially saves some folks from getting on the road, and it saves some folks, if they did get on the road, they knew what they were dealing with a lot better. You would not believe how many people after that came up to me and said, you know, I've heard that my whole life, but I never really understood what it was until you showed us on the video.
And you accomplished that in 30 seconds.
I mean, it was so funny.
Because people were waiting for you to bust your butt.
Yeah, and thank God I did not fall when I slid and made that little improvised slide move. But
do you use those interrogation skills with your kids in ways that are not law enforcement related?
You know,
with a 13-year-old daughter.
Unfortunately, yes. You learn those skills through repetition and doing them over and over for so long, and there are certain things that you pick up, and unfortunately that's hard to cut off.
You recently just ran the United Way campaign for Columbus.
Yeah.
What was that like?
That was an experience that I wouldn't trade for anything, but it was a lot of hard work.
Pull you out of your comfort zone?
Yeah, because well, not so much my comfort zone. I love meeting people, and I think I'm a people person, so meeting different people doesn't bother me at all. But man, it really is time consuming if you do it the right way, and if you really want to. Scott Ferguson kind of insisted you do it the right way. Put your heart in it. Well, I told him I was going to do it the right way from the beginning, and what was so scary for me is it was the first time that an Alabama guy had chaired the whole thing. So I put extra pressure on myself to not let this side of the river down and not embarrass myself or embarrass Phoenix City in Alabama. And luckily everybody really rallied around me and worked hard and came up with the most ever we've ever raised, and it was a lot of fun, and people really embraced the idea that we had. And you can't talk enough about the staff at United Way for what they do for this community every day. I mean, there's just not enough words to say. If I go out of town on a business trip or vacation, I may get to relax, but my phone is on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
3 a.m. call from this office.
This office.
You're answering it.
I'm answering it. This job is a privilege bestowed upon me by the people of this community. And I couldn't have any more respect for that, in my opinion, than what I have. I know it. I live it every day. And I don't want to do anything to take that away or to hurt the community by something I've done. And so I try every day to earn that trust. I don't think I'm a full-time politician yet, but politicians, if I was, they should run every day. Not once every 4 years, not once every 2 years. They should run and earn the respect every day
And that's
of the
what you're
people
trying to
they
do.
serve.
That's what you're trying to do.
That's right.